One, two, three, four.
Welcome to the High Performance CEO Show, your exclusive insight into the strategies and success habits of the world's top CEOs. I'm your host, Sebastian Schieke, entrepreneur, mentor, and business angel. Prepare to grow your business, enhance your leadership skills, and thrive in today's world. Let's dive in. Hey, welcome to another episode of the High Performance CEO Show. I'm Sebastian Schieke, your host, and today I'm talking to Julian Hayes II. And Julian is an amazing person. He runs an executive health consultancy, and I'm so happy to speak with him today because I'm personally very interested in everything around health, longevity, using wearables and gadgets to track and monitor your health. Because we all know what you don't measure, you can't manage. And I'm really excited to speak with Julian today. And I hope we all learn a little bit how we can manage our health, because you have to be the CEO of your health in order to really thrive and not rely on the health system, which is not the best in most of the areas of the world. Julian, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me on, Sebastian. And I think I should say good morning to you and good afternoon for me, right?
Yeah, good morning. Good afternoon.
Thank you again. And you are absolutely correct that the health systems for most places leave a little bit to be desired. They're great for emergencies, but anything other than an emergency is maybe become a little dicey.
Yeah. Maybe to start with a small story. I have an injury from running, a tendon injury, and I have this for over 2 years now, and it's really affecting my well-being, and it's affecting everything I do. And it's so difficult to get some help, because you have this big variety of different opinions and different people you can go to. And what I'm missing, is a kind of an overarching body, an overarching health advisor, who could guide me, because you go to an orthopedic and we said, you should do this. You do acupuncture and you can do this, but there's nothing really which all the strings, and gives you an overview of what is available and guides you through this process. So I had to do everything on my own. I had to do a lot of research and a lot of reading, and now I'm probably one of the experts on tendon problems because I learned so much about it. But this is not my job, I shouldn't I shouldn't spend so much time in research and learning about all these different treatments. I should be able to go to somewhere and get advice, and this is what I'm missing.
Yeah, I can relate to that on a lot of fronts. For me, kind of a lot of the stuff I stumbled upon. Of course, I've been interested in health and involved in health probably since I was about 20 years old now. But it's a lot to be desired because depending on who you go to, you're going to get an answer. But a lot of times, the way health is set up, we're looking at things in silos, and we're not thinking about how all these things interact with each other. We're not looking at this as a system, and all these things are connected. And speaking of tendons and everything, I've been on about a 10-day rest period to nurse my foot back to health before I start my next training cycle with running and everything. So there's a lot of interesting modalities with that. I'm curious, what did you do?
Well, I did 3 stem cell therapies.
Okay. I like that.
Yeah, unfortunately, they didn't really work out. 2 from the hip, 1 from the body fat. I did take blood from your body and extract the white blood cells and re-inject it back.
Sounds
RTP or something like this.
Erythropoiesis or plasma something.
Plasma, it's kind of didn't really help. I was resting it for 6 weeks. Was basically walking around with in a ski boot. Didn't really help. Now I found a therapist and we do heavy loading. We put heavy load on a tendon. So heel raises with 12, 15 kilo and plus of additional weight. And I must say, I feel that this could go in the right direction. But it's a completely different theory. One say, you shouldn't do anything. And the other voices say, you need to put load on the tendon. You need to really get this fabric to regrow, to basically and spark it with a grow impulse. And this is what I'm doing right now. And I'm actually positive and hope that this will lead me in the right direction.
Yeah, I'm thinking of one more thing. When I hear healing, there's this peptide called BPC 157. And it's had really good results with people. Different athletes use it. And peptides is a probably not pharmaceuticals' best friend because they're in competition with each other. Yeah. But BPC 157 is something that has helped me in the past with healing.
Okay.
And so that's something to look up. But if for your situation, there's capsules, and then there's also you'll have to do an injection. And so since yours is a tendon issue and it's not in the gut, you will want to look for injection because anything in the capsule it's good for gut BPC 157, but anything outside of that, you'll have to do a injection and everything. But that's something to look up. It's not too much homework,
Okay, good. Thanks.
And you can always ask me, and everything, because with those things, you also have to find a reputable source to get them from and everything as well. So that's the thing with peptides. So it's a little bit of the wild, wild west, a little bit in the health field.
I read a few bits about it, but as you said, it's a bit sort of uncharted territory. It's still in a discovery mode. But what I learned, and this is why I'm so excited for you, is you basically have to be the CEO of your health. Yeah? You cannot just rely on external circumstances, on external health. And also, I'm reading a lot of books about longevity now. There's this tendency in this industry going away from reactive medicine, so that you go to a doctor when you feel symptoms, to a more preventive medicine, where you already start living a healthier life, already start measuring more your key parameters and take action before sickness appear. And I think this requires a mind shift in the society. And also in the health system, because the health system, they pay doctors to fix you, but they don't pay doctors to keep you healthy.
True. Because that's kind of how you get reimbursed and everything is with that. So, it's a system issue. So, if we're looking out in the future and everything, that's probably going to be the last step when the big system catches on. So this is why each individual has to take their health into their own hands. And we always have that kind of system in our backup. But like you said, there's so many things available now. There's different biomarkers that we can test for that can give us an idea of just how our health is right now. I think of a test like a biological age test, and you can get an idea of just how old you are biologically on a cellular level compared to what you are chronologically, the number of years around the sun. And nothing in this world is absolute just yet, but it gives you an idea to see is the way I'm eating, the way I'm exercising, just the whole way I'm living in general, is it actually providing benefit and actually taking me in the direction that I want to go in? Because a lot of times before we had some of this technology available, we just had to rely on our feelings and how we feel. Well, I feel great, or I look young, so I guess it's good. And that's it. Which, to a certain extent, how you feel and everything is an important variable, but you can't measure that. And a lot of people like to have something to measure against. A lot of people need to see that data, and because that's going to motivate them, but it's also going to act as a form of self-accountability for them.
Exactly. I mean, talking about data, I had an interesting discussion with a doctor the other day. He said, and I agree, I mean, I have a tech background, that when you utilize all these data which is available now, with proper, like using AI and really understanding the patterns in the world and understanding how things correlate, then, I mean, there's big treasure out there which is hardly utilized. All this health data is put away in boxes in secure databases. And if you would utilize this information, if you would really analyze patterns, and see what are dependencies, what are really factors for recovery, it would have a tremendous impact on health and lifespan of the people. And it's really interesting why this is not happening yet. I mean, there are obviously various reasons, data protection and so on. But if we really would take this step, it would, in my opinion, have a big impact on humanity.
Absolutely. And I forgot the exact number itself, but I saw somewhere where it was that if you focus on aging as the central culprit, the central thing of everything, and focus on aging, start classifying it as a disease, that's going to have the biggest impact on our health span and lifespan, as opposed to just focusing singularly on diabetes or singularly on cardiovascular disease. Focus on aging as a whole, because from that aging, and why we age, that's what causes all these other different chronic illnesses that manifest in our body. And, I look at the data and the technology and everything. I look at this kind of like iPhones and just anything. There's always the early adoption stage. And I think this is where we are right now. There's people who are forward thinking and want to be the first to try these things and use these things. And then eventually the masses and everything will start to use it as well. And so I just think it's just the phase that we're in right now. To me, it feels like this has been around forever. But I live in a silo sometimes in a circle, and I have to remind myself that a lot of this stuff that seems old to me is not old, it's new. I mean, intermittent fasting is so popular now, and we start talking about intermittent fasting and ketogenic diets and all this stuff 10 plus years ago. But now you're seeing it on TV and commercials and stuff now.
Apps, everything,
Yeah, so everything has a lag period. And so I have to keep this in mind as well. So, but I got faith because my mom was asking me about getting a wearable now. And so I'm like, oh, okay, this is a positive sign now, because if my mom is asking and curious about wearables and keeping up with different metrics, I was like, okay, I think we may be entering the next phase in terms of this adoption.
Well, talking about wearables and your work, I mean, you advise executives on health topics. And can you share maybe 3 to 5 most important areas to focus on to improve your health or keep it on a top level? And maybe also some wearables you would recommend. I mean, we're not promoting any brands here, but still, I mean, I have an Oura Ring, I have an Apple Watch, using a couple of tools. What is from your experience, what are the top things to focus on?
Yeah, let's go with, I'll share different ones I like after. So some things that everyone, just to keep it broad, is number one is sleep.
Wow.
And just the quality of your sleep. Because a lot of times we think, hey, I got 8 hours of sleep, I'm good to go, which is not completely wrong, but there's another level with that. And so it's more sleep quality, because there's different stages of sleep that we have. And I'm sure you see that with the Oura Ring, where you have your light sleep, you have how many awakenings, how long it takes you to go to sleep, and you have the deep sleep and the REM sleep. And those are 2 critical stages, because it's connected to various functioning within our body in terms of hormonal health and even losing weight. And then REM sleep is associated with a lot of our cognitive abilities and our ability to take in new information from the day and then synthesize that, process it with the existing knowledge, and then essentially become smarter the next day, or at least be able to retain that information. So sleep quality, looking at that whole sleep architecture, is one thing. The next thing I like to look at is, and these 2 can probably go together, but we'll separate them, is heart rate and your HRV.
Yeah.
And HRV is heart rate variability. A simplified way is just to basically think of it as your readiness for the day. It's a balance between your sympathetic, parasympathetic system. Sympathetic's fight or flight. Parasympathetic's more rest. Most of us, especially if you're in any sort of leadership position or entrepreneur, you're most likely very sympathetically driven and dominant. Yeah. So this is a good way to kind of measure that and see how you are. And another one is respiratory rate. I like that one. There's some interesting research coming out about respiratory rate and that being associated with lifespan and health span as well. I had a very interesting conversation with the individual a few months ago about that. So those are some key ones. And the reason why I even like all of these is because this is essentially giving yourself a mini checkup or physical, right? And let's go with checkup. You're basically giving yourself a mini checkup every single day with these numbers. And a cool thing, I think it's cool, maybe it doesn't feel cool at times, is that if you have an illness coming on, what you'll notice when you know your numbers, you'll see a few days. Yeah, yes. You had it happen to you?
See a trend.
Yeah, you'll see a few days beforehand, like for me, my heart rate shot up like 10 extra beats. It was like 50, it was like 57, 58. I was like, man, what is this? I'm supposed to be in the high 40s.
Yeah.
And I was like, my HRV tanked. I was like, wait a minute, I think I'm getting sick. Something's coming. I don't know what's coming, but something's coming. And so you're giving yourself an extra 48 to 72 hour buffer. And that's the whole thing about optimal health.
Yeah.
It's not about avoiding any sickness or avoiding injuries or anything. It's about your resilience and your ability to bounce back. Whereas maybe the average person, it takes them a week to get over this cold or whatever that's coming.
Yeah.
And for you, since you have this extra buffer to go in and start taking measures into that, to working on it, maybe you're only down for an actual day or two, and then you're back up again.
Yeah, because you don't do the wrong things. When you see, okay, your numbers are a bit odd, you wouldn't put in a heavy workout on the day. Said, okay, I keep it slow. I go to bed early, drink a lot of water. Try to calm down.
Yes,
not to put more stress on your body.
Absolutely. And the thing with data is that a lot of people, a lot of us are, and I'll be the first to admit it, is that we have an ego, and when we tell someone, hey, you should sleep more and everything, and they're like, okay, yeah, whatever. I'm fine. I feel good every day and I'm still getting things done. And so you try to explain to them, hey, there's a difference between just existing and thriving. That sounds good in theory, but still, they're like, whatever. Okay, let me see the data. And then you can see, this couple glasses of wine right before bed, it may help me sleep, but then my sleep quality is terrible throughout the night. So the second part of your question is to name some of the wearables I like. And the way I go about this is that it depends on how much you want. Like there's some wearables that are just give you a couple things, and then there's things where you get literally everything to monitor. So a lot of that's personality driven. So the Apple Watch, like you mentioned, that's a pretty good one. The Oura Ring is good. I think that's good for people. It's probably one of the top. I think it's probably the top sleep one. Yeah, probably the top sleep one. And it's just a ring. So a lot of people maybe not like a watch, or they want to wear a nicer watch or something. So that's a good replacement there. The Whoop is pretty good. It's pretty basic. It has those key metrics that I described. It's very simple. The interface is good. Then the Garmin's are awesome. Garmin's are awesome, but Garmin's include a lot of different metrics. So if you're like a beginner and maybe you don't want to feel overwhelmed, maybe don't start with the Garmin, because there's going to be so many different metrics. But it's like the James Bond watch. That's what I call it. It's like the James Bond watch, because there's so many cool things to do with it. So Garmin's my favorite. But for most people, you can just go down to personal preference, because those few metrics that I described, I think pretty much all of them are going to have those now. So you'll be good either way. So it just comes down to personal preference and what do you like to, which style. I like to see the Garmin's is also, it's the closest thing to a luxury sports watch. So you're kind of getting the best of both worlds there, because like the Whoop is just a band, and the Apple Watch, well, they look pretty nice, but you're not going to mistake that for a luxury watch. So a lot of it's personal preference.
But I mean, apart from the type of watch, it's important that you analyze the data and take action. And really understand what is behind. You mentioned HRV, and when talking about HRV, it's interesting number. The time between your different heart strokes. What is a good number in your experience for mid-aged person?
Well, HRV, a lot of it is genetic based. Some of it's genetic based. So this is where you'll see. So for me, my HRV is in the 60s to 70s. Where I have a friend who's in like the hundreds. I'm in far better shape than him. No offense to him. But the thing is though, it's my HRV has improved over time. So with HRV, it's hard to really compare yourself to the next person. There's usually a typical range, maybe. I think Whoop has shared some data with them and said like, from this age to this age, this is what most people fall in line with. But for the most part, it's individualized. So knowing your baseline HRV, what you started with, and then seeing it improve over time and at least not declining, that's going to be the best way to approach HRV. Heart rate's a different story. There's a lot more research and data around heart rate. But HRV, it's highly individualized. And so, because I used to be very competitive, I'm like, man, this sucks, because they have like 40 points higher than me. But I know like my cardiovascular system and just overall fitness is much better than theirs. So
Interesting. Yeah, seeing trends is important, and seeing the direction of your numbers. So we talked about sleep. We talked about fasting. Exercise is very important topic. I mean, often it's the simple things, I mean, there's this saying, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Yeah, drinking 3 liter of water a day is something which everyone should do. And I also have to admit, sometimes I'm not following through. Sometimes I miss it because life just happens, and then you're around with the kids, and you're traveling, you're hiking, whatever, and then you don't follow through. But in the end, these are just simple measures we all have to follow through to keep a relatively healthy life, right?
Yeah, well, I like to look at this as all those things you mentioned are pretty much the foundation. And the foundations can take you very far if you're executing on the foundations. And I mean, probably just like in business, you can look at any company and they're very solid at the foundations. And then once they have those foundations covered, there's probably the special things that they do, or the extra things that they do, the small things that really makes them great and elite. And it's the same thing with your health. A lot of the biohacks and everything, those are great once you have the foundation in place. Like, it doesn't matter how much you, so I think a lot of times now we want to skip the foundations and find like a limitless pill or something to skip
Fast
those.
pace, yeah.
Yeah. So it's definitely sequencing, and we have to keep that in mind. Optimize the exercise, the nutrition, and the sleep, and even the stress, even like the way you handle stress. Don't necessarily have to get rid of all of it, because stress is a good thing. And for the most part, stress is just really how you perceive that stress. And then once you have those, then you can start to maybe add some extra things in there to when you start getting into more of the longevity, the anti-aging space, and you want to start dialing in more of a supplement regimen to really focus on how you're aging and different various biomarkers.
Yeah, you talked about longevity, and I mean, there's so much research happening in this field. I'm following David Sinclair, for example. I mean, you probably saw him. He's doing a lot of tests with mice and rats, to see patterns and then apply this to humans. I read a book from Sergey Young called Growing Young. If you've seen this, yeah. And I mean, they say that in a couple of decades, we might see people growing up to 100, 150 plus years, which is it's a completely different game, yeah. I mean, when you look back in history, I mean, in the mid-age, people had, I don't know, a lifespan of 30, 40 years max, Now we are around 80, yeah. So when you say, okay, I mean, if you manage this, then we also might manage another big leap, which also, of course, brings up a lot of other topics, like do we have enough space on Earth? Do we have enough resources to feed people? But I think for me personally, it's more like the quality of your life,
Absolutely.
It's not only about living 150 years, but you see so many old people suffering, they from an age of 60, 70, they spend their most of the time in doctors, taking lots of medication, having pain everywhere. And I think this is the thing which we should really focus on, to improve the quality of life, and really make it worth living, and not just suffering from a certain age onwards.
Yeah, and I think that's actually a better message if I had a megaphone and I was going to try to really inspire the masses. That's the angle that I would go with, because I tell people, I plan to live 120 plus, 150 plus. I like moonshots. And the worst thing that can happen with a goal is you don't accomplish it. But, it's exciting. It makes life exciting to me.
Right.
I'm not afraid to fall short on anything. But for the average person, like, oh man, that sounds scary. You tell someone that sounds scary, because when they think about aging, aging has this negative perception or connotation. Like when they think of aging, you think of, their brain is moving slower. They got icky joints all the time. They got stubborn weight. They're colder all the time. Their sleep patterns are off. And so there's nothing positive that comes with aging in most people's view. So that's the first thing. And so that's why I think it is important to talk about the quality of life. And when you do talk about lifespan, you talk about the health span, and you talk about the well span as well. What are you doing with these extra years? So I told a friend, he's about 60. I told him this is just halftime. this is just maybe the next quarter. And so now it's the next quarter of life, and then it'll be the next quarter of life. So now these are different phases. So for me, I'm 36 chronologically. And
so you're a baby, basically, yeah?
Yeah, I told her I'm just an adolescent. I'm an adolescent in everything. I'm an adolescent in just life in general. I'm an adolescent in business because, barring any unforeseen thing, I have plenty of life left, 100 plus years. That's just my mindset. Yeah. But I also still, though, keep an urgency to cherish each day, though. So it's keeping two ideas in one head, but which is a delicate thing. Maybe a little too much for people at first, but you can slowly wean them on. But the first step to kind of tie this together is the first step with people when we think about aging, it starts in the mind. We got to really fix this view of what aging is, and really make this a little healthier, because it sounds scary. Because I actually thought that once you get past 30, my upbringing, I saw people just break down after 30. And I was like, I was like, Jesus, I don't want to be 30.
They break down, they give up, they think, okay, I mean, my life is gone, I have another 20, 30 years. And this mindset affects their body. I mean, we have this strong connection between the mind and our body. And if our mind start thinking, okay, we approaching the end, then the body think, okay, then I don't have to worry anymore, I don't have to put out this energy anymore. So then the body starts breaking down. Yeah. And this is a small, gradual process. Yeah. And we have, I mean, I see so many people, as you said, they're this age, 40, 50, and they sort of finish their life, mentally. Yeah. Yeah. I said, hey, give me a break. There must be more. Yeah.
Yeah. They study some of the longest living populations. And, one of the things is to just have a purpose, and sometimes purpose seems too tough for people to think. It's like, I don't know about purpose, or just something that gives you a rhyme and reason to wake up every morning and to go about your day. To have some sense of mission or direction in life. It's one of the first things I mention when I think about, okay, what are some of the key domains, pillars to optimally performing? Well, the first thing I think about is like kind of your mission and your mindset, and having some kind of thing that you're going after, or something that inspires you. Yeah. Because I think about like U.S. presidents, and typically the U.S. president lives a pretty long life. And we think about it, though, they also live a pretty stressful life. Those 8 years are pretty stressful. Yeah. If you look at any president as they're going in office, and you look at it when they're going out office, look at the difference in the picture. Like, you can look at Obama. He was gray all over at the end of his term.
I promise.
Bush, same thing with like wrinkles. You can see the aging on their face, or just the stress that they had. But they typically live a long life. And I think one of the reasons is because they have this rhyme and reason, this purpose for doing things, even after the presidency. I know President Jimmy Carter here, I think he's in maybe a hospice right now, but I think he's almost 100 years old. Right. And, he's very known for doing a lot of charitable work and stuff outside of that after he left his presidency. And so if you have a rhyme and reason to why you do things throughout the day, that's essentially giving your life force. There's no research. I don't think we'll ever see research around this, but I just know it to be true that, I see it in my family, that I come from a blue collar family. I'm the first one to go to college. And so you see people that they work for retirement, and then retirement comes and they have nothing to do. Yeah. And for whatever reason, it seems that in the next few years, their bodies just shut down. And that's why, that word retirement always scared me. It always scared me because of that. Because I think as humans, we need something to
do. We need
to do. Yes, we need some kind of purpose or rhyme or mission to do something.
Yeah, and this is the most biggest driver, this is your identity. The identity is your biggest force, and if your identity is mapped to a mission, then you do everything to fulfill this mission, and to have the energy, the health, and the drive to do things, and then if this is lacking, then you said, you work for retirement, and then boom, what's this? Well, this was my life.
Because I think about even your situation with your tendons and the injury, is that the identity that you had, you can just hear it right there, is that you're a person who seeks answers. You're a self-starter, and you're going to get the answer. Yeah. Even if you have to do it yourself. Whereas a person who's maybe not like that with their identity, they're just going to accept the first answer. They're just going to accept the status quo. And that's the same thing when it comes to aging and health. You're just going to take on this identity of, hey, you have cholesterol problems, okay? Hey, I'm a person with cholesterol problems. You're affirming these things that you are, rooting yourself in this identity, and it's harder to break that then.
My identity is I'm an energetic sportsman. I mean, I ran a marathon before I had this tennis topic, and I want to get back to this point, So
yeah, same here. Yeah, I think of, I really love comic books, and I really love superheroes. And so for me, in my head, I'm like, I treat my health like I'm treating this like I'm Batman. Yeah. Instead of like gadgets and stuff to go fight crime, I'm using all these different health tools and gadgets to fight aging and to fight, the status quo of what people think about, So that's, in my head, I'm training like a superhero.
Yeah, and that's the point. You have to set yourself an identity, which inspires you, something like, Batman or whatever, big sports person, or whatever inspires you. And then once you've decided on your identity, then your system is doing everything also on a subconscious mind to go towards this direction. I mean, it's like anything in life, There's so many people who win in the lottery, They win $1 million, and then 2 years later, they're even worse than they started. Why? Because if you want to be a millionaire, you have to become a millionaire first in your mind,
Yeah, I can relate to that. Not because I blew millions like that, but I can relate to the whole idea. It's one of the lessons that even my mentor now, we still talk about and hammer on, is that you have to become that thing first. Before you get that thing. You have to already be and become that person. And so that's a hard concept to grasp, especially when I think of someone who's like, for me, like when it came to weight, I came from the opposite and I was super skinny, right? I was super skinny. And so I had this vision in my head of this person, but I'm like 40 pounds lighter, But one of the things I did though, I remember still when I started back in college, I went to the store and I bought the size shirt that I was going to fit into one day. I put it on when I got it. It swallowed me. But I was like, one day I'm going to have shoulders and everything, and it's going to fit in this shirt. And I put it on one day, and I was like, man, that's it. And I didn't think about that until he brought it up one day when we were talking about something with work. And I was like, it's the same concept. Same concept.
For me, it was the other way around. I was like probably 10 kilo more on my body. And there was a time I said, okay, I have to stop this, And we had to switch and change my diet and more exercise. And then I had a cupboard full of suits, which I wore my previous jobs. And there was a day where I sort of put on the suit and I looked like a beggar, I mean, everything is just hanging, I mean, what is this, And then I took a big bag, and threw all these clothes away. And then I said, why do you throw them away? I mean, maybe you need them in the future. I said, no, I will not need them in the future,
Throw it away.
Exactly.
Throw it away.
You have to
throw it away.
burn the bridges, throw them away, and it
absolutely
hurt. But I don't want to wear them again, You have to really make these decisions. You have to burn your bridges. There's a saying, if you want to take the island, burn the boats. So that you can't go back.
I think the universe does this. You'll have these tests that come up that really test you. And it's like, you sure you want this? Are you sure? You serious about this? And it comes in like different tests for each of us. And I think it's due to our personality, whatever our weakness may be. I just think that's the thing in life, that a lot of times the challenges that come up, it's the thing that we're most weak at, and it's like testing us to get stronger, to go to the next level. And this is the big bad boss that we have to defeat.
Life is happening for you, not to you. That's one of the, I mean, it's a statement from Tony Robbins, but it's one of the statements I really love and embrace. Because yes, I mean, look back. I look back at my life. Every challenge I had led to something bigger. They let me grow and go to the next level. And once you see this, and don't fall into this victim mindset. Everything is happening and it's not my fault, it's the world. And I said, no, I mean, it's the world, as you said, it's the world testing you, and as you accept the challenge, and rise, or you just be the victim and, that's it. And then,
I just look at it as it's just a villain, and I'm going to take this villain to Arkham Asylum because like I said, and that's all it is. And sometimes I might lose. I'm going to go back to my cave, when I'm in that mode, and I'm going to strategize and look at and learn from it, do a debriefing, and then I'm going to come back again. But the good thing about this is, and this is something that I'm still learning, like I said, because I'm an adolescent, and that's, is that a lot of times you can't fail if you don't quit, but also the quicker you get out there, the better, because then you can iterate to the next version of whatever the task that you're going after.
Yeah.
And you'll be that much more efficient and effective. So it's better just to get out there as soon as possible.
How do you work with your clients? I mean, you advise executives on health. So what kind of programs you have? How do you help them?
Yeah, so it's all sorts of different levels because I have different partnerships. So like, the very top end, there's a medical option as well that I have with some doctors and everything that will do some tests that I cannot do, but I know are beneficial. But for typically though, everything starts with what I call diagnostic. And so there's a couple essential tests that I'll have shipped out to them, and everything depending on where they live. I'll have some labs and stuff set up for them, and we get that, and that gives us our initial
baseline. Yeah,
gives us our initial baseline. It's telling me a story of kind of how they're living. It's giving me an idea of where some areas to initially focus on, but I'm also going to take into account of what do they think is the problem. And then I'm going to look through everything through their lens. And that's just because it's easier to get the buy-in, to build a rapport, and have them not feel like they're being dictated to. So that's just a little coaching thing right there. But for the most part, I'm doing that initial thing, and then we're implementing going from there. There's a core set of things, and then if there's something extra that comes up, then I just go ahead and take care of it and have it for them as well.
And you primarily work with executives, high achievers, people who are...
The interesting thing about this is that most of the time people are not necessarily an executive or anything. Executive health is kind of a double meaning. Yes, it's for executives, entrepreneurs, but it's also really for you to start thinking of yourself as the executive of your health and life.
Exactly.
And it's usually a type of individual that is usually gravitates to this kind of thing. Because if you think about it, some of these things are not necessarily quote unquote essential or fundamental. But if you are looking for that extra 5 to 10% to put you over the edge, if you believe on just continually growing it and you're very forward thinking, you're going to love this kind of thing. And so it's usually the type of person, or like I had a lady, and I think she was like retiring from school teaching and everything. And I think she did a couple other things. I can't say those jobs. But I think she wanted to climb some mountains. And so she's already working out, lifting weights, eating everything, but she's looking for the next few things that can kind of help her continue to perform at 50 and beyond. So that's a whole different conversation. It's not motivating you to get off the couch. It's like, I'm already off the couch doing things. I want to be further refined and optimized. So that's kind of the thing as well.
Yeah. As you said, it attracts a certain type of personality. Yeah. People who expect more, people who have a drive, people who want to live life at the fullest. Yeah. And want to be in top shape, and also probably people who are coachable, and who come from a certain stage. I mean, if you need to put them off the couch, then it's a completely different conversation.
I have friends, and that's their niche. They're more for the mass market and everything. They're getting you to the start line of the race, and I think that's a good thing. And so I have those people, and I can refer them. If I think this is, and to refer them to someone like that, that's more the rah motivator and everything, and a little more patient. I guess that's a nice word to say. But so I think it's just, I initially started kind of in that area. I started with just typical personal training. When I left medical school after a year, and I started with just personal training, and I started to get an itch personally. I think there's more. I think there's more to this. Like this, just training for how I look in 12-week programs, it gets a little boring, and I'm like, I think there's another tier. I think there's something else. And so I started to research genetics about my own family, because a lot of people in my family came down with the same thing. And I looked at other families that didn't. So I started to learn in that regard. Then this led me down another rabbit hole. Then I got introduced to other people. That led me down a rabbit hole. Then I got to talking to people, and they're like, well, I have to go to nutrition for here. I have to go to exercise for here, and I have to do this for that. And I was like, okay, wait a minute. So maybe I can have all this in-house and just have like all the resources to take care of it in-house. So therefore, you don't have to go to like six different people. I can just provide these people and all that. So it was a lot of iteration, and every day, honestly, is actually iteration, because this stuff is very fluid. That's the exciting part. There's so many things unknown about this, and like no person is really the same. And so there's having templated things is a thing of the past for me. Everyone's an N of one, because we have unique situations. Even if we kind of have similar genetics on certain categories, how we're experiencing life is going to be different. Me who's single right now, doesn't have a family, is going to be different from someone who is running a multinational company and has a family of 4. The stress levels are different. Sure, I stress, but my stress is different than his stress. So I have to account for those things. I have to also account for how you're going to go about setting up your nutrition and everything, because there's other people involved. How are we going to get your family on board, your wife on board? I can do whatever I want. So it's easy.
But if the kids want a pizza, it's hard to say no.
Yeah. So it's keeping those things. So if I'm being honest, a lot of it is kind of getting things structured in life. More so than there's little details like, hey, this, looking at your genetic testing or micronutrient testing, things like that. It's a small part of it. A lot of it's really integrating all this stuff with a life that you actually want, and not feeling like there's any friction. Because a lot of times we do things with our health that are not in congruence with how we want to live our life. And so in a couple, maybe weeks and months, you're going to have these two butt heads, and you're going to start to feel like, well, I have to do this thing for my health, so I can't do this. And you start to resent the very health and fitness plan that you're on. So how can we integrate all these things, work, life, and your health, in one seamless thing?
Exactly. It's basically like to run a business. You need systems in place.
Exactly.
Yeah. And you also need systems in your private life.
So yeah, and I think one other thing is that we have to know our psychology and our mental makeup on this thing. So for me, I'm kind of an all-in-one guy. So I can go cold turkey on things. And that gets me in trouble, which is why I had a week off, because I pushed it a lot, and I'm going to push it. I'm going to continue to push it. This just shows me, this is just going to show me, hey, this is your range. Yeah. It's not a bad thing. Dial it back, build yourself up, and then you're going to extend that. That's all it is. That's all it is. Yeah. For me, it's probably I need to stretch and I need to work on my recovery aspect a little more. I get a little lazy, and I try to skip out on warming up and stretching. That's one thing that actually is pretty tied in with your age. You can't defeat that. So, because I used to, probably about 10 years ago, I could just go in the gym or go for a run, sprint, everything, just cold, and start lifting the max weight, no problem. Now, not so much. I got to be a little smart with that. So that's one thing that I had to learn as well. But it's a very exciting thing though. But I say knowing your psychology and your mental makeup, because I think about all the different ways we can eat, for example. They're all pretty much the same. There's a few details that are different, but they're all like avoid processed foods. Okay, we know that. Avoid processed foods. Most of them are like eat some more vegetables and fruit in your diet. Okay, cool. But then you start adding, should I eat more carbs? Should I eat more fat? Blah, 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 blah. Right? And you got to think about what type of foods do you actually enjoy? Because I have a hard time believing that, for example, that carbs are the worst thing in the world now. Because for hundreds of years, 30 years ago, people were eating carbs and they weren't necessarily just having weight problems. So you can't just be that. You're looking at just one situation in a silo again. So that's why, it's a little more critical thinking. I want to see kind of apply to the whole field in general when we come out with thinking about integrating our plans and strategies.
Yeah, and knowing yourself and knowing that this often when we are in a bad mood, we try to lift this mood by using food. Yeah?
Is it?
Lifting our spirit, by eating this chocolate or eating this cookie, and or drinking more alcohol,
That's oh man, I had another great conversation on this about it was a guy talking about loneliness, executive loneliness, and just and just leaders in general, and how they seek at these high positions and everything for outlets. People seek food. Sometimes they seek the alcohol, like you mentioned, and sometimes they seek exercise or other illicit behaviors as well. And so that's the thing to keep in mind as well, is that sometimes our health problems or our weight problems, it's really a life problem. Something in life is causing this. So that's why it's very important to always operate with the systems mentality when you're looking at your health.
Hey, Julian, it's one of my longest conversations I had. It's amazing speaking with you. Is there anything you want to tell the audience? Anything you want to share before we wrap this up? Anything?
Yeah, I would say, I guess this can seem overwhelming, the whole field of aging. There was 9 hallmarks of aging. Now they're recognizing 12 hallmarks of aging. Probably in a few more years, there'll be more. Seems very overwhelming. So I'd probably say the one thing you can do to get today, no matter how you feel or anything, is just to go start getting your numbers, start getting your data for where you are right now. And so before you even have to go order any tests or anything, just go get a checkup at your doctor and get anything you can get, just get it. The more data, the better. And the reason why is because even if you're healthy right now, even if you feel great right now, what you're going to have a baseline for where you were at this moment and As you go into the future now, you're going to be able to compare that. And that's going to give you an idea of how you're living, how things are going, and you're going to be much more precise with different supplement regimens that you're going to do, different exercise regimens and all that. And that's leading to a more efficient and effective person, which then, most importantly, leads to you enjoying your life much more and having time for the things that you actually enjoy instead of just having your nose in a book reading about health, which you probably don't want to do.
Julian, thank you so much for your time. Where can people find you? What's the best way to reach out?
Yeah, you can go to executivehealth.io. Okay. And since you're listening to this fantastic podcast, go ahead and head over to mine. You can listen to it. It's Executive Health and Life. And there's a lot of episodes on a lot of different things over there that I think you'll enjoy.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I will definitely check out your podcast and continue with the great work. I think you have a great mission, an important mission, and there's lots to do. So thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning into the High Performance CEO Show. I'm your host, Sebastian Schieke, and it's been a pleasure serving you. Please subscribe to our show on your favorite platform and leave us a review. Your support helps us reach more listeners and create a bigger impact. Check out our website, sebastianschieke.com, for additional resources. Until next time, be bold, be exceptional, be outstanding, be a leader.